Welcome to episode 158 of Timm Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe, co-created by Bruce Timm. I'm Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And this week we're doing some more Static Shock. We got some Army of Darkness, aka X-Men, the Static Shock episode.
What about the in X-Men Evolution, Spike joins the blanks?
The Morlocks.
Morlocks, thank you. I kept wanting to say Murdochs.
Yeah,
Like, that's not it. They're not blind.
No. The Murdochs are a far more disgusting group of people than the Morlocks.
I was thinking Matt Murdock, Daredevil.
Oh, you were thinking of Rupert Murdoch and his brood?
Yeah, no, not Rupert Murdoch.
No, Matt Murdock's a lovely, lovely human being. The Murdochs are horrible.
Yes.
No, well, it'll be the Morlocks. We'll get into that, though. And then, of course, we're also talking No Man's Island, which is the return of Hotstreak, but also Edwin Alva and his son, Alva Jr.
And Rubber Band Man.
And Rubber Band Man,
the
yes.
first time we see him in his new look.
Exactly, yeah, which it's definitely an improved look. So before we get to that, though, we, of course, have some news, which has been fairly light this week. I think we're in the news moratorium pre-Comic-Con.
That we thought we were in 2 weeks ago, and we were not, but we are this time.
But since this is 2020, we got yet another streaming service launch, which I know nothing about, but you've been exploring a little bit. So Cameron, walk us through what's happening with Peacock.
I have. So NBC, not CBS, NBC just launched their...
NBC Universal.
Sorry, yes, NBC Universal just launched their streaming service, Peacock. Because, what else do we need right now other than more options of stuff to not watch? But I will say, I think Peacock is worth the time right now because at the moment it's a free service. I'll rephrase that. It's free with an asterisk. Because it's kind of like the early days of Hulu, if people remember that, where it's like very scattered commercials, not where it's the like 3-minute impacted commercial in the middle of an episode. Mm-hmm. But you can pay for tiers. So they have premium content, which is like, I don't know how they picked what is premium and what isn't, because I think the stuff they picked is not worth paying money for. Because they have like great shows on there. So some of the stuff they have for TV shows is like Battlestar Galactica is on there. Heroes, Friday Night Lights, Saved by the Bell, 30 Rock, Downton Abbey, Psych, which a lot of people like that never got into, Suits, which a lot of people like that never got into, Will and Grace, and House. It's like a pretty substantial TV package.
And wait, that's on the free version or on the...
Yes, those are all free shows.
Okay, because I love Psych, and I know that the second Psych movie is up on Peacock, but I don't know yet.
Yeah,
if
so
it's on the
that's
free
one of their
version.
originals.
Okay, is the original stuff only on the premium version?
No, original stuff is also all free.
Oh my god, I can watch Psych 2, Lassie Come Home for free?
Yeah. The premium content, which again, like, I don't know how they chose. One of them I do get. One of them is Shrek, and Shrek is the most premium content the world could ask for.
I mean, Shrek might be the movie from the early 2000s that is held up the best.
Oh, absolutely. Shrek 1 and Shrek 2, absolutely.
I love Shrek 2.
But premium is like that. Forgetting Sarah Marshall is premium for some reason.
I'm sorry, what now?
Everyone Loves Raymond is their premium TV show.
They have a very loose definition of premium, don't they?
Yeah. But alongside of all those shows, what I think this platform is best going to be known for is it has two categories that everyone loves to talk about, but I don't think people have really seen. Mm-hmm. It has the entire Hitchcock library, which is awesome. All is free. And has the entire classic horror movie lineup.
The Universal Monsters.
Yeah, so you can go back and watch the original Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Creature of the Black Lagoon, Invisible Man.
Wolfman.
All the stuff they've been trying to reboot poorly over the past 2 decades.
Let's be honest. It's more than 2 decades. They've been trying to make the Universal Monsters relevant again since they came out in the 1930s and 40s.
Yes, and I think it probably peaked, and tell me if I'm wrong on this, it probably peaked with Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
I'm sure it did. Never seen it, but I'm sure it did.
Wait. Did they own... Oh my gosh, this is going to change everything.
What, if they have the full library of Abbott and Costello, are you going to be 100% on board now?
No, damn it, they don't. I was going to say if they had the full library of the Alvin and the Chipmunks meet Frankenstein and the Wolfman.
God.
And they do not, unfortunately. Oh, but so for Peacock, I think they didn't do a great job promoting themselves because I haven't seen a single ad for this. The only reason I knew it was out is I have a friend on the promotional team. And I should probably tell him that he's not doing a great job because I haven't seen a single ad for it. But I think they have a pretty good catalog to start. And they're still missing what I would consider their like tentpole show. And the whole reason this platform is supposed to exist is to take The Office away from Netflix.
And they still haven't done that yet? How much longer does The Office have on Netflix? I thought it was up.
I thought so too. Friends was the one that ended on New Year's.
Yeah, but then that went on to
HBO Max.
HBO Max, because even though it aired on NBC, it was a Warner Brothers show.
Yes.
Back in the day when studios used to sell their shows to other networks rather than hoard them for themselves to put on their exclusive streaming platforms.
Exactly. Oh, what a day.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've really just gone back to the golden age of Hollywood, where not only did you own all your shows, you owned all the actors and your shows and your writers, and you would lock them in on the set and say, you get this nice house, but you can't leave. Not house, you get this nice bungalow.
Of course.
But you can't ever walk off the set ever.
Nope.
Because you are ours now.
Yeah, I mean, we're basically just heading back towards consolidation and monopolies.
Exactly.
What a time to be alive. Oh, God.
I mean, it's not like Disney's never stopped doing that, but that's fine.
No, that's true. Now, okay, so it sounds like Peacock is a decent platform to have right now. They have a pretty good library of back catalog stuff, if maybe not great original stuff yet.
I feel like all platforms are struggling with original content. I weirdly think of all the platform, there was also, I don't think I brought this up last week. There's an article that came out about Quibi last week that their 2-month free subscription service just ended and they lost 90% of their viewership.
Yeah, not surprising. I never even bothered with it.
No. I think Quibi did have the best original content ideas. And it's just a shame that got the original ideas and not like spread across these platforms. Not that I want more competition between HBO Max and Peacock and Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu and Amazon.
So, okay, so we're at the point now where we basically have all of the platforms that have been promised. I imagine that we'll see more going into the future. From your perspective, I think you've been doing a pretty good job of actually like sampling all the content. Which one is most worth it? Like, which one is actually worth the amount you're paying for it?
Oh, I mean, content per dollar, Disney Plus is stupidly cheap.
I would agree with you on that, actually.
The fact that it's still $5 is like, I don't know how they're making a profit.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, because they own all the content and they're not paying royalties for anything.
But also, like everyone else right now, they're actually not turning a profit.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think in terms of a library of content, and I think their originals are still kind of minimal, and that's just a struggle everyone's going through right now with the fact that production just shut down across the board, so you're not getting new stuff. But The Mandalorian is some of the best Star Wars content, as is the final season of the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm. So I'm getting there. I'm slow crawling my way.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. There's more coming, because they just announced that the Bad Batch, which was a 4-episode arc from the this final season here, those group of characters are going to continue on in a no show, which those episodes are okay. They're not great, but hey, you know what? More Star Wars is always a good thing. Mm-hmm. Actually, sorry, let me rephrase that. New Star Wars is not always a good thing, as evidenced by
all
episode
the new Star
8,
Wars we got.
episode 9, and Solo. But new Star Wars is always a promising thing that oftentimes underdelivers, but the TV side of things has been good. Yeah, I would agree with you. I think Disney Plus, for the price, I think has the best content. Hulu is still pretty good in terms of being able to get a lot of stuff. I feel like Netflix now at this point is only really concerned about its own original content. TV is better than film, I would say.
Well, so I was going to bring up, we have most of the major studios having their own platform now. We still have the straggler, the one who's consistently 5 years behind everything else.
Viacom?
The
I knew it. I knew that was going to be the one.
Yes, the company that put all their stake in Blockbuster back in the day and just sat on it and watched Blockbuster tank. And as Blockbuster was finally bankrupt, they're like, hey, maybe we should try something else. And someone said, no, I think this is still going to work, and started Blockbuster streaming.
My God. Yeah, I mean, I think CBS All Access for me is the least worth it. Like, I signed up for it for a couple months so I could watch all of Discovery and watch Picard. We now are getting a new Star Trek show, Lower Decks, which is kind of like a comedy animated show, which seems a little different. Again, I might sign up for like a month to watch all of that once it's all available. I don't think it's a subscription worth holding on to all the time because there's not that much stuff on there. So I'd say probably best bang for your buck, Disney Plus, least so would be CBS All Access.
Yeah, I mean, HBO Max is just so expensive.
Yeah, there's that. It is really expensive.
It has its huge movie backlog, which is awesome. And I've been like very, very slowly going through all the classics.
Yeah.
Because it has like a pretty good musical backlog, which I think is awesome. Because that's something I never watched growing up, and I'm excited to dive into. But yeah, Disney is not that I'm biased or anything.
No, not at all. I don't know. It's an interesting time to be consuming a bunch of shit. All I really care about at this point is that I hope that all of the DCAU stuff does find a home again, because right now, we're both enjoying your DCA universe platform.
Yes.
To watch everything. I'm pretty sure we'll get through the end of Static before any big changes happen, and then I own all of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited on DVD.
Do I also do. Yes, they're all still in their plastic wrap.
You've never opened them?
No. I always just had them available on my computer.
But then again, you're also the man who owns multiple copies of Avatar
4
and
sets
multiple copies of Scott Pilgrim books. So
no, I only own 2 sets of Scott Pilgrim, but I have
Cameron, I used the phrase multiple. I said you own multiple ones, and then you said, no, I only own 2.
Yeah. But they're different. One's in color and one's not.
2 is still multiple, Cameron.
It's fine. That's fair. I had one other piece of news for you, just for you, because it's news that I love to talk about and you hate to listen about.
Oh, God.
There's a movie coming out.
Oh, God.
That's been coming out for 3 years now. We got New Mutants information, Chris.
Did we actually?
We did. Not only are they having a panel with the cast at Comic-Con, we got a new trailer.
Fucking hell.
With a new tagline, which I think is the most ironic and wonderful tagline of "Nothing will stop the New Mutants."
Okay, which is?
That's it. That's the tagline.
Oh, that's the tagline? Nothing will stop the New Mutants?
Yes.
Well, there's a lot of shit that could slow them down.
Yeah. And on top of that, once we hit August, we will hit the 3-year anniversary of the first trailer for New Mutants. How excited are you right now, Chris? Are you going to be watching that panel? July 23rd for everyone that wants to know. I'm going to be
watching to see as all of the cast and crew slowly ambles their way onto the stage because they are geriatric now at this point.
Yeah. I remember being at the Scott Pilgrim panel years ago, as I've mentioned before, and that cast already giving non-answers. And I remember asking my mom about it, of why are they all acting so weird about this movie? And she reminded me that when you have a super VFX heavy film, you have a year between them filming and then talking about it.
Yeah.
And so they don't have a lot of those memories that people want them to have. So I can only imagine with this cast and crew that filmed this movie 4 years ago now, Jesus, for people to ask these very relevant questions and just no one is going to know the answer to.
Maisie Williams, what was it like to be on set? I don't fucking know.
I was 14. I don't know.
Oh my God. If I were her, I would just skip that panel because there's nothing to be gained from being there, because she'll just get questions that she can't answer because she made the movie so long ago, or she'll just get shit for Game of Thrones stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be a week without us talking New Mutants. So Cameron, thank you for bringing that up.
Of course. It is my duty and honor to continue to talk about this movie.
We will never stop talking about it because it'll never actually come out.
Nothing will stop the New Mutants.
Nope.
I fucking like. I don't know if that was the original tagline. If it was, that's hilarious.
I don't think so. I think someone probably said that as a gag. I'm like, actually, that works. Let's totally go for it. And then it not really realizing how stupid it sounds.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Well, should we move on to some Static Shock?
Let's talk about some Static Shock.
So, first episode this week is Army of Darkness. Not a Sam Raimi film, unfortunately. But this one sees the return of Ebon, who's recruited a new group of bang babies called the Nightbreed, who are or susceptible to damage from the sun. And he recruits them to build a device that will block out the sun so the Nightbreed can take over Dakota and Ebon can rule over them. Cameron, what did you think of this episode?
I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah?
Yeah, I liked the character. You know what? I miss Shiv. I don't know where he went, but Shiv hasn't made an appearance since season 2.
I think
at this point
you might be the only person on the planet who misses Shiv.
Because he's Green Lantern. He's just Green Lantern.
Okay, he's just Green Lantern, which explains why you miss him. But he's the worst, most ineffectual version of Green Lantern.
Yes.
Full stop. Like, yes. Is he ever really effective, even as a criminal?
No, and that's what's so endearing about him. He's like pure comic relief, but not as good as Carmondillo.
He's the New Mutants of the meta breed. Nothing can stop him.
Yes, except not airing him for a full season and a half.
Hey, it hasn't stopped the New Mutants, which hasn't been aired in 3 years. So,
but no, I like these characters. Did you do any research on this group of people?
I did a little bit of background research. Apparently, they're based off of a group from the comics, from the Milestone comics, called the Blood Syndicate.
Yes.
Because there's a few crossover members there. But I didn't see anything in my research about the Blood Syndicate that showed that they were also vampires, which is what we get in the TV version. I don't know if you did some research or found anything different than that.
I was just shocked. I didn't realize how expansive this universe was.
Oh yeah, there's a lot to it actually.
Yeah, so these are still in comics. These are still bang babies. This is still in Dakota City. They're in a very specific part of Dakota.
Oh yeah, Paris Island.
Paris Island, yeah. But no, I read through some of their characters, and some of them sounded really interesting. Their main villain, who I think is who Hotstreak is based off of, is, even though Hotstreak does appear in the Static comics, is this villain named Holocaust, which I understand the name change.
Yeah, I don't know if that would have gone over so well.
But yeah, he's basically just like this walking supernova.
Because he's got pyrokinesis, superhuman strength, superhuman durability, and thermokinesis. He can make his body hot enough to melt any bullet shot at him and absorb heat. That's pretty cool, actually. I've never heard of that power set. His abilities include leadership and business management.
Yes, I read through all of their abilities, and like half of them have the power of leadership. It's like, you know what? Some people pay a lot of money for that. Like they're full seminars about that.
Yeah, that's true. You know, they could make a great TED talk about it.
Yeah, that's also where not H2 Olga. God damn it!
Oh my god,
the other one, Aquamaria. From.
Can we like go through and just remove H2 Olga and any of the Butch Hartman and Kids Next Door stuff from your brain? Like, one, it'll make our lives easier on the podcast because we'll have fewer tangents, and two, eventually you'll get the chance to re-experience all that stuff for the first time again.
Yes, even though H2 Olga is literally in one episode of Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh my god.
She's a one-time Crimson Chin villain.
But look at the impact she's made on you and you alone.
Same with Dee and Amy from Kim Possible. Everyone seemed to remember this villain very fondly. Is in one episode.
It's the name. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's such a good name.
But no, I mean, I think what's interesting here is, like I said at the top of the show, to me, this was one of the most heavily X-Men inspired episodes we've had so far. So their version of the Nightbreed reminds me a lot of the Morlocks, which is the group of mutants who have a lot of physical mutations, and so they can't pass as normal people up in the surface world, and so they go down into the sewers to hide away from everyone. And in this version, it's the Nightbreed, and for whatever reason, they're a subset of the Bang Babies that are hurt by sunlight.
Yeah, sunlight is poison to them, as they say.
Yeah, which is interesting because initially when we meet Nightingale, who's kind of the main Nightbreed character who, starts out as a villain and ultimately kind of turns, becomes a hero, her power is to control dark matter. And so there's a loose logic there that can make it sense that she would be susceptible to daylight. And that's where you think it's going, but then it turns out all of them are. And so it's the four main ones we meet are Brickhouse, who is basically just Brick Colossus, Nightingale, the aforementioned.
She's the Thing.
Yeah, but she turns into a brick.
But not in the comics.
Oh, okay.
In the comics, she's always Brick.
So okay, yeah, in the cartoon, she can turn in and out of being a brick house. So that's, yeah, so she's just like the Thing / Colossus. Nightingale, I guess, is kind of like Shade and Nightshade from DC.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit in terms of her power set. Fade is just Kitty Pryde.
I love Kitty Pryde.
Exact same powers.
Yeah.
And then Tech is just Evil Gear.
Yeah, generic smart guy, genius boy.
Exactly. Another Bang Baby induced
Gizmo,
genius.
Gear.
Yeah.
Tech is such a lazy name too. Like I like all the other names. I'm not a big fan of. I was about to say I'm not a big fan of Brickhouse.
I love it. I just also love disco music. That's part of the reason I love it.
Fair.
Yeah, but to me, I know these are all characters that come from the comics, and comics are constantly stealing from each other. But to me, watching this, it felt just a little bit uninspired, like in a little bit hodgepodge. It's like, okay, we got a bunch of new Bang Babies. There's this weird subset, and there's more of them too, which I also found really bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Like they talk about how there's this whole underground community. We see them as part of like a bit of flashback exposition, but we don't meet any of the other ones. But
it's also our first time getting a Big Bang flashback in a while.
Yeah, that's true. And it also makes you wonder, like, how many people were actually at the Big Bang? Because from what I recall from the episode, there were probably like in the dozens, right?
It was like all the gangs. So we'll assume these kind of like teenage gangs probably have like 15 members each.
Was it actually all of them?
Yeah, it was like the gang war.
Yeah, but I don't remember it being. I remember that's how they describe it in this episode.
Well, because we focus on the gang that tries to recruit Virgil, and then the gang that Hotstreak is a part of. But then there's also the gang that Ebon leads that we don't see.
Well, and that's kind of my point. Is they seem to have retroactively added this idea of it being like a full-on like gang war that happened when it aired in the pilot. It was really just these two gangs. And I get that that's necessary to, bring in more characters as we go along, but it starts to, I don't know, push the boundaries of credulity at this point.
Mm-hmm. I would say there were probably 60 people there. I think that's a fair number assessment.
So based on this episode, it seems like there's at least, 20 plus people that are part of the Nightbreed?
Yeah. That's
a pretty big contingent to have never been referenced before. And I guess they all went into hiding.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just felt a little bit odd to introduce this, we're 4 seasons in now at this point. We're almost at the end of the run of the show to introduce this like subset of the Bang Babies. It feels a little hat on a hat to me.
Would you have liked it more if it were a 2-parter?
Not at all. Absolutely not. The second part would have just been introducing every single member of the Nightbreed one by one.
No, you meet the Daybreed.
Oh my god.
That have to constantly be in sunlight. So they sleep in tanning beds.
That I would have been all on board for. That would have made perfect sense to me.
Yeah, they're so toned and bronzed all the time.
Just glistening.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also felt like we've seen this general plot before. I mean, this is essentially what Ebon wanted to do in flashback when he goes back to the Dakota riots, and he's going to unleash the Bang Baby gas back then.
Yeah, and also Ebon is full on supervillain this episode.
And I think that is one of the problems I have with that character is he's portrayed as the biggest bad of the whole show. And I think for good reason. I think he, in general, is an interesting character. But he just now has these like crazy over the top plots that don't, to me, really seem feasible, or like they have a lot of runway. Like his whole motivation now is just to rule over an army of people in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't feel...
And his way of doing that is to block out the sun.
Block out the sun, yeah. With
just like The Simpsons did, and just like South Park referenced The Simpsons doing.
Of course, because The Simpsons did it first. It also just... It's so generic. And I think that this show, more so, I think a lot of other shows in the DCU, carried on the legacy from Batman the Animated Series of trying to make the villains, or at least the powered folks that we meet who are often portrayed as villains, interesting and relatable and humanistic, and having a grounded, sympathetic backstory. And you just don't have that with Ebon at this point, really. He's just this like really generic Machiavellian villain, and to me that's a little bit disappointing. Even the Nightbreed here, like we're kind of sympathetic to them because they've been trapped underground this whole time, but even the show just discards them at the end.
Yeah, they're like, oh well, let's we can help you, and like, nah, we're fine.
We'll just figure it out on our own. It's all good.
I really loved the very awkward dynamic between Nightingale and Brickhouse.
Oh yeah,
because at first they seem like very, like not against each other, but definitely not on each other's side. Mm-hmm. And then you see Nightingale get pushed around a little bit, and then kind of towards the end, they're like, "Oh no, we're friends. Brickhouse and I, we go way back. We've always been friends. We're best friends." Yeah, I'm like, "Are you?" Because you treat her kind of like shit, and not in like a best friend treat them like shit kind of way, but just like generally you treat them like shit.
Yeah, you seem to hate each other.
Yeah, I'm sorry she can't turn into a brick house like you can. All she can do is make things dark.
Yeah, and even the idea that this machine that Tech builds is inspired by Nightingale's really generic dark matter powers. That felt like that was there just so that she could save the day at the end by absorbing all of the dark matter as it gets released.
Yeah.
I mean, there were things I did like about this episode. I did like that when they go to the Dakota nuclear power plant to try and steal some technology to build this machine. When Static and Gear show up, they actually have a really good plan in place to disable everybody. Like they almost shut down the crime instantly. So they show up and they immediately wrap Brickhouse up in one of Gear's cables. Then Static uses his powers to steal the reactor, and Gear swoops through and then grabs Fade and takes him up to a super height so that if he tried to phase out, he would die when he hit the ground. Like, that is actually a pretty good approach to taking everyone out. Like, it shows a level of strategy and forethought that I don't think we often see from...
And experience.
Yeah. I don't think we see that enough from Static and Gear, which is surprising considering that, not only are they super smart and capable, but they have, this deep-rooted friendship and that sort of, like, inherent chemistry and trust and shorthand. And we don't actually get to see that very often.
Yeah, I when you mentioned that, I did think of something. When was the last time Gear's like band ball worked?
Good point.
Because I feel like when we first saw him, that was the go-to object, and it always, no matter who it was, and like only Static could get out because they were electric. Yeah. And since then, I think every villain has gotten out of it. Maybe not Talon. I think he's caught Talon once.
I feel like he's caught Talon multiple times with it.
Well, because it's in the intro.
We could also just be thinking of the intro.
I think every other villain since then has been able to break out of it.
Yeah, you kind of want a little bit of sense of continuity of him like re-engineering it so it's a little bit stronger.
Mm-hmm. Or even have them specified for each villain. Like, you know who your rogues gallery is now.
Yeah.
Have one that has like a glow stick in it when you're catching Ebon.
First he has to like crack it.
Yeah.
And then he throws it. The one for Talon just becomes a big bird cage.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the one for Talon, this is for Talon. It already
It's
works.
the only one. She's the only one that it works on.
Because he has the full ball one for what's her name?
I have
Steam
no idea.
Girl, Smokey, Robinson, Puff.
H2 Olga.
H2 Olga, D and Amy. Because he has like the one that like is basically like a rubber ball for her, right? Yeah.
Sure.
You know, have like he would be smart enough to have villain specific gadgets,
or even to like factor in Static's powers. Like, I'm surprised they haven't found a way to incorporate like an electrical charge into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it goes around them, and if you strain against it, it gives you like a mild zap.
Yeah, I mean, even what we see in the next episode, I feel like that kind of tech could be useful for him.
Here's what they should do. They should incorporate dog collar technology into his net bands. So, it's like he's got a little button, and if they start to act up, first it gives them just like a, like a little vibration, just to warn them, like, hey, calm down.
Mm-hmm.
You've been captured. If they keep struggling, it just beeps at them a little bit. It reminds them, like, hey, stop it. We're here. And then if it goes too far, finally, exactly. Maybe sprays water in their face. And then finally, if they go too far, it shocks them.
No, that's just a Hotstreak sprays water in his face.
How have they never thought of that? All they need is just a squirt bottle, and they've got Hotstreak under control.
And we also, in the next episode, we learn there are power nullifiers. Those exist now.
Yeah, but only when it's convenient.
Yes.
So, but like,
because do you think if they have like give the Nightbreed a power nullifier, would that allow them to go back into the sun?
Ooh, that's a good question, actually. Because I feel like this is the first time we've had a Bang Baby villain with a really significant weakness, right? We've had little things like the monster, the Jekyll Hyde monster, is susceptible to sound, but I think that's just because the person herself had like sensitive ears to begin with, and they just got
heightened.
Thank you. But yeah, that does raise a good question of like, if you could nullify the Nightbreed, would you also nullify their weakness? I suppose so, because they're related.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we had that problem before with power stealing. Oh, the weird like chameleon guy.
Yeah, with the suckers on his hands. I want to call him Leech, but that's not right.
That is his name. Yeah, you nailed it.
Is it? Because Leech is a mutant.
I think Leech was also this guy's name.
Oh, well, isn't that convenient?
Because when he absorbed Ebon's powers, Ebon should have reverted back to his normal look. And I think that was just on the animators, just like, no.
Yeah.
We don't want to.
I mean, speaking of the animators just going, nah, we don't want to. I love that they established that the dark matter bomb that Ebon has built is going to go off in the dead center of the city. And where does it happen to be?
The backdrop they've already drawn.
Yep, the abandoned gas station of Solitude. And you're like, oh, this could be interesting. Like, maybe Static and Gear are going to have to try and like protect their hideout and their identity while this is going on. It's like, nope, they just wanted to save money by having it be at a location we already use.
Exactly. I love it.
Look, I can't judge them for that, considering that every live action TV show ever made just constantly sets battles in places we go to. Like, how many times did the Smallville climax of the episode happen at the high school?
I'm going to say every episode from season 1 through 5.
Exactly. Either that or in the redwood forests that are very famous in Kansas.
Yeah, generic forest land. There's one aspect about this episode that I think is very important.
Okay.
And it's a I would say character defining moment. And it is Gear almost finding out who Batman is.
I did like that a lot. Yeah, because Static is complaining about how he just can't handle these all-nighters. And Gear makes comment like, oh, Batman must be some rich guy who can sleep all day.
Mm-hmm. And then he looks at Static. And Static canonically does know that Bruce is...
He does.
Bruce is Batman now.
I mean, good on him for also not telling Richie.
Yeah. Fuck, I would tell you immediately. There's no way I could keep that to myself.
But also, I wouldn't tell you.
Yeah, that's fair. You don't here's my problem. You don't crave the attention like I do.
Oh, that is not true. That is absolutely not true. I constantly crave attention. I just try and find it from other sources.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. That's what Grindr's for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point we know for a fact we won't be seeing the Nightbreed again, considering we have so few episodes left, and they're just going to be left in the dark to eventually maybe find a cure.
Maybe. I mean, we do know that the Wayne Foundation still does exist and is trying to cure metabreedness.
Yeah, but Static isn't going to recruit Bruce Wayne to help because he just totally accepts the fact that the Nightbreed is just going to solve it themselves, and he just very willingly walks away, leaving them to their own devices down in the sewers.
I do love that Tech even had that line of like, oh, I guess now that we're not building this doomsday device anymore, I guess I can find a cure.
Man, if I had been doing this the whole time, I probably would have found one by now.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me? Any other thoughts on Army of Darkness here?
I think we got it.
All right. Well, we'll move on to our second episode here, No Man's Island. I always want to call it No Man is an Island. But so this episode sees Hotstreak and Static captured by a paramilitary group and taken to an island where bang babies are being experimented on to try and save Edwin Alva's son, who is still frozen in stone after the episode Junior from season 1, where he overdosed on bang baby gas.
Yes, completely skipping over the other episode where we see him still in stone because we don't care about that one.
What I most appreciate about this episode is that it makes that other episode from season 3, but it was clearly produced for season 2, canonically unnecessary.
Exactly. It did our job for us.
Hated that episode so much. We are, of course, referring to Trouble Squared, the return of Specs and Trapper, who build weapons to themselves and call themselves Spectral and Speed Trap. It is one of the worst episodes in the entire show, and luckily it is proven inconsequential, and we can very happily continue to not include it on our short list.
Yes. I made a comment last week, which is a comment that I've made many a time since Static began, and I do have to course correct a little bit. I said that Butch Hartman was heavily inspired by this episode.
From legal perspective, you said that Butch Hartman was heavily inspired by it and did not blatantly rip off.
And there, for the most part, it is the same-ish episode. Danny and Valerie, who's become the new ghost bounty hunter, if you remember from season 3, they are kidnapped by Skulker, the ghost bounty hunter, and drops them in the middle of basically, it's more of like The Game, I think, is the movie.
Oh, yeah. Is it The Most Dangerous Game?
Yeah, sure. But yeah, it's the two of them handcuffed to each other trying to escape Skulker's island.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, we've seen this plot in a number of places. We've had an episode before where the hero was like stuck somewhere and had to escape. And I'm pretty sure it was it a Batman Beyond and it was like a school trip?
Yeah, but who would he be stuck with? Because I think
it was Max, and he wasn't like handcuffed to someone. But
okay, because I think that's the fun of these kinds of episodes is you have two people that have this history that are now stuck together, and have to find a way to communicate. Because what I think the Danny Phantom episode did much better than this one is it's the one where like you really humanize Valerie.
Okay.
And like you kind of understood her background and kind of like ghosts. Her dad was also big into the supernatural, and it kind of like messed up his career. And so she blames ghosts for kind of her family falling apart.
Yeah, I think that episode you just described does a little bit more than this one does. I think this one's still...
Where we learned that Hotstreak was in a hospital for 2 years, and that's the only backstory we're ever going to get for him.
Yep. Yeah, it's... Like, I think for me, the part that I liked most about this episode was that it was essentially just like a nonstop barrage of movie references, right? It's like the plot itself is clearly based off of Yeah, I think it's pretty sure it's the most dangerous game. We've seen this whole thing about like, heroes and villains getting handcuffed together all the time. So like right there are things we're familiar with. But like there's a lot of inspiration from other movies. Like the island itself and the whole facility feels very James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
And like a little bit of Indiana Jones too, to some degree. Like even the styling, the color palette, a little bit of the paramilitary group that Alva has that takes him out just feels like, a little bit Indiana Jones. There's obvious Star Wars references.
I was going to say like that was the biggest one for me is like I paused the episode. I'm like, are they just straight up playing a Star Wars, like
yes,
the Imperial March in this?
Yes. Yeah, because at one point Hotstreak and Static capture a flying speeder. Because also for some reason this episode has like future tech way beyond anything else we ever see in Static Shock.
Yeah.
Like it has future tech more reminiscent of Batman Beyond than even say like Superman, which was the more sci-fi of the other shows we've seen set during this time period. But yeah, they're like on the speeder chasing through the forest and they straight up just play the Imperial March.
Yeah.
Which is pretty fantastic.
I was kind of like put off by it. I'm like,
I found it distracting.
You're allowed to do that.
Yeah, I found it very distracting because also like it's clearly meant to be a Star Wars reference, clearly, because it like hits you over the head with it. But also the music doesn't really fit what's happening in that scene.
Or Static in general.
Yeah.
Like Static has a very specific like audio cues and sound and tone. And it's not like thematic.
Yeah, it's not like dramatic and operatic. It's like, this doesn't really fit. Also, I didn't see any trivia of this, but I'm pretty sure that the nurse who works at Alva's facility is supposed to be a reference to Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, never saw the movie.
I read the book, I think. Yeah. May have seen the movie. I don't know.
It's a lot of references that we don't get.
But I mean, I like that it had those kind of pulls in there. It seemed like an episode where everyone was having fun making it. Like there's a lot of heroes and villains thrown in there. They don't necessarily all get a moment to shine, but you just get to have them all like play off each other. There's a lot of movie references.
Yeah. So when they get to the island, I don't think we mentioned it yet. When we get to the island, we see that they've already captured Gear, Rubber Band Man, and Talon.
Yeah. And to your point, this is the first time we see Rubber Band Man in the new aesthetic, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. That we went, almost a season and a half basically without a Rubber Band Man episode. Now, to be fair, he did appear in, I think, at least one or both of those season 3 episodes that were produced in season 2.
Yeah, he was in the one where Daisy falls into a coma.
Yeah, that's right. But for the most part, we haven't really seen him yet. And I really think his redesign is a huge improvement.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, he's busy being a pop star, man.
That's true. I know he's the best hero in the entire DCAU, and he has a full, rich life that he's living. But, I just miss him. I miss him when he's not there. Even just the few seconds we get here is all the worth it. But no, I like that he now has like much more dark shading on his suit. So it's just this nonstop barrage of really obnoxious purple.
And this is going to sound cliche of me, I think this should have been a 2-part episode.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I think it could have been so much fun because you make part 1 the first half of Batman Nightfall, where something happens.
Someone breaks Static's back?
No, before that, where something happens and all the villains escape.
Okay.
And so now Static is exhausted trying to catch everyone. And you basically, because I think here's how I justify it. Alva can't get to the metas because they're all under Wayne Tech. They're
all in prison.
They're all in prison in kind of the hospital area, being kind of tested on to find a cure. Mm-hmm. Alva can't get to them because he can't compete with Wayne because these two kind of big tech superpowers.
Yeah.
So he devises a way to break them all out. And that way he can kind of collect them on his own. So you have Static and Gear kind of exhausting themselves in this first half of the episode. And in the first episode, trying to round everyone up, he starts to notice a few things. And he sees like someone grab Talon, and he sees someone do that. And then like on his right, he sees Hotstreak getting away. So him and Gear split. Gear goes after Talon to see what's going on. He goes to chase Hotstreak, and the episode ends with them realizing in the middle of the fight, them realizing that like everyone is gone. Like there's no more heroes or villains around. Rubber Band Man comes in to try and help round everyone up. He's now missing. Like literally everyone has just vanished.
Yeah.
And then the episode ends in the way that this episode already had, where the two of them also getting kidnapped.
I will agree with you that is a more interesting setup. And that episode sounds like it would be really cool and interesting. And then I feel like you would get to this half and be like, oh, what a fucking letdown.
We can still do something with it. I didn't think this far through yet.
I think I found this episode more fun than Army of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
I think because it was just kind of fun and playful, but I also found it very frivolous. Part of the reason is they never even bother trying to explain how this machine is supposed to work to try and save Alva's son, right? So he's still trapped in stone, and it's something about how he has the same energy inside of him as all Bang Babies do, and so they're going to extract the energy from other Bang Babies and like irradiate Alva Jr. until he's normal again. And it's
it sounds like you fully understand it. That's exactly what happens.
It is
I don't know where your question is.
It is the most tenuous logic, even by kids' cartoon standards. And it just made me not super invested in the objective. Like I have sympathy for Alva trying to save his son, but because the machine is so vague and the effects on the heroes are so vague, you never really feel like a sacrifice is being made on anyone's part to make this happen. Like, yeah, they've all been kidnapped and like held there against their will, but you never really feel like anyone's in real danger in any sort of sense. You know,
I mean, they say multiple times, if we do it too much, they're going to die. And him saying,
then no one dies.
I don't care about killing teenagers.
He does literally say that at one point. You know, but even when, you know, they're able to break out all the Bang Babies and the Metabreed and Static and Gear like all team up together to help take down Alva and the bad guys, even at the very end, Static feels bad, and so he wants to help save Alva Jr., so he volunteers to go into the machine to power it himself. And Gear makes a comment like, oh, if you do this, there's always a possibility you lose your powers for good. And you're like, that's not even going to happen, so I'm not too worried about this.
I think, because that's a good point, I think that could have been an interesting twist on it, is it's not going to kill them. They think it's going to kill them, but then when they wake up, the three of them kind of like for a short period don't have their power, or their power is significantly weakened. Yeah. Like Rubber Band Man tries to stretch and grab someone, and his arm just kind of like flops to the ground. Or Talon like sees her wings kind of shrivel up back into her arm.
Yeah.
Or something where they're like, oh shit, he accidentally found a cure.
Yeah. Then that would have made it a little more interesting. It has no stakes at any point through the episode.
Yeah, and especially like once he's healed, Alva's just like, cool, hey, thanks guys. Here's a plane, just get out of here. Like, no, you fucking kidnapped us and like tortured us, and we're not gonna let you just get away with that, which they do.
Yeah, they just let him go.
And I even wrote, I'm like, and there's not going to be like a reward. And then Hotstreak's like, oh, he gave me this plane.
He gave me this fucking hover jet, which is the worst idea possible.
I loved that last beat where he crashes it into a wall.
No idea what he's doing. I also feel like, was this the first episode so far in Static Shock, or possibly all the DCAU, where we have computer generated animation thrown in there too?
I think so, and it's very apparent.
It is very apparent, yeah. So there's a couple points, like the sports car the Hotstreak steals at the very beginning. Some of the droids that are flying around, even some shots of the hovercraft are all CGI.
Oh, my favorite is the tiny CGI, which I think is probably what started it. Is on the screen when they're looking at like Alva Jr.'s vitals. Mm-hmm. There's a tiny spinning 3D model of Alva. But he's in this like weird hunched over position, and it's super like you wouldn't notice it. I think if it was like hand drawn, you wouldn't notice the obvious hunch. But since it's a 3D model rotating, it looks so unnatural. It's the pose you see like when people are like mid transformation of werewolf and they like have that huge hunch and their arms kind of widen.
Yeah,
it was that pose.
Yeah, it's not the most seamless integration. And I don't know enough about animation. Was this still done on cell, or is this all digital at this point?
This is, I think, all digital.
Okay. Because I feel like by the time you get to
I
like
can check
Justice
real
League and
quick.
Justice League Unlimited, the digital quote unquote hand drawn stuff blends a lot better with the CGI stuff. Like sometimes it's a little bit patchy and obvious, but for the most part, like those two things blend together a little bit better than they do here. And I don't know enough about animation to know why that's the case. I don't know if you know.
I mean, it's just very yeah. I think it's all animated. There's one cell, but this looks like a thing they sold on the side.
Okay.
It's him fist bumping Steve Nash,
Nice.
which we'll see next week. Yeah. So this is still like there were obviously we had 3D animation existing at this time because while this is going on, we have the beautiful ugly characters that are Jimmy Neutron.
Oh yeah.
Ugh. But yeah, it wasn't smooth yet
No.
because it was expensive. Like Jimmy Neutron was an expensive show to make,
I bet. Yeah.
and equally, it was kind of just a movie thing. Like integrating 3D into TV animation was just not a thing you did back then.
Yeah.
And so I think this is just kind of like very, very early attempts, which I mean, I think for 2003 cheap 3D, I think it looks fine. Like the Lambo, I think looked fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's noticeable, but it actually worked pretty well for the most part. And it makes sense they would start to go down this path. You can absolutely see why they would do it.
Oh, here's continuing my 2-part pitch. So part 2, I just want to get like a little more backstory into Hotstreak. I hate the one line they threw out. Like you don't need it. Either give me more or don't add the one line of I was in the hospital when I was a kid, so I don't like doctors. I'm like, okay, and now I'm free and I'm gonna run away and I'm gonna kidnap Alva Senior.
Yeah, and now Mark McGrath. I think maybe that's why this episode I found it fun, but it's pretty hollow because it feels like it was a number of different things shoehorned together. Like you feel like they wanted to do an episode that gave more context and depth to Hotstreak, but maybe they didn't have a fully baked idea, so they just shoehorned it in with another idea of like trapping people on an island, and they shoehorned that with the idea of trying to bring Alva Jr. back. Like there's actually a lot happening in this episode if you really think about it. And I agree with you. I would have much preferred this be a more of a one-off episode of Static and Hotstreak having to survive together. You look back at BTOS, and that did a really good job about, by the time you got to like the latter part of the first season into season 2, they would have episodes that gave more background on the villains and made them a little more sympathetic. And I was actually rereading through the BTOS series Bible this week, and one of the things that jumped out at me is that even in the Bible there was a strong emphasis on making the motivation of the villains relatable. They really want to steer away from it being just a series of we need to capture / kill Batman, and here's a bunch of death traps that we saw in the 1960s TV show. They wanted to move away from that and towards something more grounded and relatable. And they wanted the motivation to be more than just, greed, or if it was coming from a place of greed, it maybe answer the question of why. And I think what we're seeing happen here towards the tail end of Static is the realization that this show suffers from the same problem as basically every other show in the DCAU to date, other than BTOS, which is not knowing what to do with your villains because you don't have a lot of good ones to work with.
Yeah.
Like, I think there are good villains in this. I think Ebon is an interesting villain. I think Rubber Band Man's arc is really interesting. But I think also when you are limited in terms of how many great villains you have to keep reusing them. And every time you reuse them, you have to come up with a more ridiculous reason to have them be involved again. We saw this with Superman. We saw it to some degree with Batman Beyond. We absolutely saw it with Zeta.
Yeah.
Well, how many times we got IU7.
I think like an interesting avenue that just didn't really go down is all of these people are gang members.
Yeah.
Like we know that from the pilot, and that's never really brought up again.
Mm-hmm.
If like there was a reason you joined, there's a reason everyone joins a gang, and like flesh out that reason. Is it problems at home? You needed money. You have kind of your own mental thing going on. Like obviously those are kind of heavy topics for a kid show, but this show is pretty prominent and pretty well known for going into those pretty difficult topics. Like give me an episode of Talon where we learned she had a pretty hard family life and maybe like her mom and dad didn't get along. And her coming back home, she now has a new problem because while they don't like each other, now they're terrified of her.
Yeah.
And so like she tried to be normal. She saw what happened to her. She had this kind of near death experience. And now she's like, you know what? I'm going to go home. I'm going to talk to my parents. I'm going to try and patch things up for them. But now they won't let her. So now she has this new fuel for villainy.
Yeah. I think honing in and giving more time to the villains the way you just described would have made a lot of this stuff feel a little bit stronger. I think this show hinges a lot on Static and especially his relationship with Gear, but there's a good...
And the Frida Daisy combo.
Yes, exactly, and Frida/Daisy. There is some good stuff here, and I think what also sets Static apart is that he really, really actually wants to help people and is not as jaded as Batman. We even saw Bruce make efforts to try and help his villains, and when they sometimes when they attempted to reform, he would be suspicious, but he would also genuinely try and make their lives better. I mean, he made it with one. You recall the ventriloquist eventually did escape and become normal. And I think Static has an even greater inclination to want to do that because he's younger and more optimistic. And
they're his peers.
Yeah,
they're people that went to school with him.
And they all were in the same thing he was. Like, at no point I don't feel like at any point does he ever go like, this could have been me. Mm-hmm. It's like not only having gone through the Big Bang, but having tragedy in their histories as well. Like this easily could have been him under very, slightly different circumstances. And you kind of want to see him make an effort to, like help the Bang Babies go through the community center. Like you almost feel like there could have been a running subplot to the whole show of Static trying to bring Bang Babies to the community center and make that a place where they have a place to go.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
And prove, and, having his dad be a part of that, and even having, Pops not knowing who Virgil is in terms of it being Static, but exploiting that relationship to try and, like Pops is part of the reason why Static is as good of a person as he is. How can he use that to try and help these kids get better too? And it's now as we're approaching the end here and we haven't seen a lot of that stuff, it makes me wish we had.
Yeah, I love that idea because I was thinking the flip side of that is you meet a villain whose mom or dad died from a gunshot. And they're vengeful and they're spiteful, and like the world took them from me because the policing wasn't good enough. So now I'm going to take that into my own hands.
Yeah.
And like have that great bonding moment between like, hey, like you're not like it's not you, it's all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Make it more about like a we thing. We're in this together and we're trying to make it, make a difference. But look, it's still fun. It just, you keep getting these hints of something deeper, and I think we're just kind of hoping to find it and haven't really.
Yeah, and I think that also comes from cartoons being so much more mature now, and like you would see these topics be played out in Young Justice, I think, pretty often.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
And this show, for its time, like it went through big hitters, like a racism episode in what, episode 3? Yeah. was a racism dealing episode, dealing with guns, homelessness, mental disorder. And
you raise a good point that without this show and its willingness to do one-off episodes that are tackling kind of headier, really substantial subjects, having those same concepts be laid out over long plot threads like we see in Young Justice being a really great example, wouldn't have happened. Like you don't get the sort of like deeper emotional storytelling in Young Justice without having a show like this that was willing to do it, even if it's only intermittently.
Now I'm thinking about like what would have been the funniest and worst PSA episode for Batman. And I would have loved an anti-marijuana episode of Batman.
Oh yeah, we never did get one, did we?
That would be so funny.
And you know how it ends? With Alfred smoking. Because he totally would.
Oh, he has to.
What do you think he does all day?
Yeah. You can only clean so much.
Yes. He just gets high and, cleans up the Batcave. Power to him. That sounds lovely.
He practices his sock fu.
Yeah.
Because for sure, after Chris O'Donnell did it, Alfred constantly tries when no one's looking.
Yeah. Oh, that I would pay to see. I'd absolutely pay to see. All right. Any other thoughts on this?
No, this is the last time we see Alva and Alva Jr.
Oh, really?
Now he has no qualms. Yeah. Now he has no qualms with Static anymore. His son's fine.
Oh, they're best friends now. It's all good.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like such a disappointing part of this thing is like Alva, it's the same thing we had with Blight. Blight should have been a series-long villain.
Yeah.
Who disappeared in season 1 and the show suffered for it.
Yeah, they just didn't really capitalize on it. Agreed.
Yeah, and Alva literally made the Bang Baby gas. And I'm almost certain we don't see him again. I could be wrong on that. But he has no problems with Static anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think so. Unless he pops up in the finale, I don't see a place where he would fit in. So, unless he shows up.
Joins the NBA.
Yes, exactly. He becomes part of the Hoop Squad.
Yeah.
Would watch. All right. Well, then, shall we do a Cameron's question corner?
I got a question for you, Chris.
All right. What do you got for me?
I want to ask you. There in the history of film, there's a lot of films that get made, but more importantly, there's a lot of films that don't get made,
or lots of films that get made and then just dwell in release hell.
Yes. And so my question for you is, especially recently, what is a movie that you were super excited for? What film were you most anticipating that never got made?
Okay, so when I was like prepping for this question, so peek behind the curtain, you don't just ask me these spontaneously. We do a little bit of work ahead of time. When I was prepping for it, I do. Yes. I was trying to think through like what movies I was super excited for that ultimately didn't get made, or like rumors of movies that I've heard about that I would have loved to see. And I have a long list. Almost makes you think this might be a good episode, like a bonus episode.
Yeah, we'll definitely come back to this because I have a lot to say.
To do at some point. But I mean, just in the superhero space alone, there's so many what if versions we almost got. You could do Edgar Wright's Ant-Man. There have been numerous unproduced Batman, Superman movies, Justice League movies. I went through this long list, and it was kind of a toss-up. There's a couple from Bond that didn't happen. One would have been Quentin Tarantino's version of Casino Royale, which sounded interesting. And then part of me always wishes I could have seen what On Her Majesty's Secret Service would have looked like with Sean Connery instead of George Lazenby. But I still love that movie anyways. Mm-hmm. But I think the one pitch that I heard that I think would have been an amazing film that we never got, and this might surprise you actually, is Green Arrow Escape from Supermax.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So for those
I don't know anything about this one.
Yeah. So what it was is, David Goyer, who's worked on numerous comic book properties, at one point he wrote a script called Supermax, and I don't know at what point Green Arrow became attached, but when he did, the idea was basically that the would have been the first ever Green Arrow live action movie that his identity is outed. He's captured and put into a Supermax prison, kind of like the Belle Reve that we saw in Suicide Squad. And he has to escape. And the only way to do that is to team up with a bunch of DC villains who are stashed in there. So the idea was that it would have a bunch of, maybe some Green Arrow villains, like a Count Vertigo or some of those others. But it also would have had just like any DC villains that you get your hands on. So you could have like Cheetah, you could have Icicle in there. There is a Young Justice episode that's kind of similar to this, right?
Yeah.
Imagine this movie where it's Green Arrow. It's not like anything we've ever seen before. It's got like elements of like the Raid or Dread or something like that. And this script was written, I think, before either of those movies came out. But it's him trying to escape, and you could just pack that movie with just cameo, like blink and you miss it cameos or references or full on like supporting roles from this huge array of DC villains. And DC has some of the best villains, and they still haven't figured out how to exploit that properly. But I think that would have been an awesome, awesome movie, and one that I really, really wish to this day that we had gotten to see at some point.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and I think at one point, I think
that could be an awesome animated film.
Yeah, I think there's still talk about trying to do it in some capacity. Like it's gone through numerous iterations. I think it was maybe an original script, and then it became a DC property, and then I think it may have gone back at one point again to being just like its own original thing with just like generic people in it. And I think there've been some rumblings about it maybe being adapted for animation. And we see bits of it in like Assault on Arkham kind of plays into kind of a similar space a little bit. But yeah, I think it's an excellent idea, and I guess it was kind of loosely adapted in season 7 of Arrow, although I'd stopped watching it at that point.
Same.
But yeah,
because I was thinking if they do that live action, I don't know why this is the first name that popped up, but I think give it to Bong Joon-ho.
Oh, that could be really interesting.
Because when you talk about it, I'm imagining Snowpiercer.
Yeah,
it's kind of like going through the cabins to get to the front of the train. And I think like that would be like such a cool way for him to enter the superhero world.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great shout. Yeah. So, if someone from DC is listening, can you just make that movie for us, please?
Yes, please.
But what was yours? What's the movie that you've most wanted to see and then never got a chance to?
So I had two. One I'll talk about very briefly because there's nothing behind it really. Mm-hmm. At the Jeff Johns panel that I went to in 2010, 10? When did Green Lantern came out? In 2011. So 2010 Comic-Con.
Yeah.
We had just gotten the Green Lantern trailer, and there was a lot of hype. God, what a failed life that was. But because he's such a big Green Lantern and Flash nerd, they had shot like a minute-long test footage for a Flash movie.
Oh, that's right.
And it looked great. And I'm sure we were never going to see anything from that again because of how bad GL did. But the movie that this one's kind of a left field one. Not for me, but for normal people. Gendry Tartakovsky's Popeye.
Oh, yeah.
So in 2014, Sony put out a 2-minute Popeye test animation of him trying to save olive oil being kidnapped from pirates. And it is so... It exudes this charm that you don't see a lot in cards, especially in 3D animation. Like this, it's so action-packed and charming and funny, and it's like... I think of the animators and directors right now, that he's kind of the only one that fully understands modern slapstick.
Okay. All right.
Like, because he's kind of evolved it through his work on Powerpuff Girls, Dexter's Lab, Samurai Jack, for being as dark as it is, has like equally funny moments because he just understands how comedy beats work. And so him having a Popeye film would have been such a cool, different take on the character, especially seeing him in 3D. It's very different. It was going to be done through Sony because this is off the back of the first Hotel Transylvania. And then no one knows what happened. The movie just vanished. And you're giving me a look like you know what happened.
Do you want to break your heart a little bit?
Sure.
I was talking to a friend recently, and I mentioned that exact thing, the Genndy Tartakovsky Popeye, and he has friends who were at Sony at the time, and apparently it was awful.
Oh, man.
Because I agree with you, that sizzle reel, like that proof of concept, is brilliant. But apparently just the actual movie itself was really, really bad, and that's why they ultimately ended up scrapping it. It's just like, which I guess if you think about it, kind of makes sense because Hotel Transylvania I think was pretty successful for them.
Yeah, so I looked at his filmography from that point on, and you have Hotel Transylvania. It was basically replaced with Hotel 2, which came out in 2015.
Yeah.
And then he kind of left Sony for a minute and went back to Samurai Jack and finished the final season of that, and then did Hotel 3.
Okay.
So he's been, pretty consistently busy since this movie was supposed to start coming out.
Well, and on top of that, with Hotel being successful, you can't imagine that it was a lack of faith in him, because they probably assumed it would make money. I think they just realized like it was so bad that they couldn't put it out there. Like it would have just been a complete bomb. So
Damn.
I know, because I'm with you. If they had found a way to capture that spirit of that short and make it a full length thing, I would be 100% with you. But apparently they weren't actually able to successfully do that, sadly.
Okay, well then here's my pitch for the studios right now. Because I think he's so good at slapstick and vaudevillian comedy, give him Space Jam 2.
Too late.
Shh. They can reshoot.
Look.
Wait, who's supposed to be doing Space Jam 2?
Malcolm Lee, who's either cousin or nephew. I think he's the nephew of Spike Lee, but also the reason I have faith in that movie is that he made Undercover Brother.
That's right. We did talk about that.
Yes.
Okay, then what I wrote in my notes was give him Looney Tunes, and I just kind of evolved that to give him Space Jam. I think he would be a very good Looney Tunes like showrunner right now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I say let's keep Space Jam with Malcolm Lee, which his involvement makes me even more excited for that movie. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Gendy would be great for Looney Tunes, which I think needs a little bit of help right now.
Yeah, and also to even further cement that, his protege Paul Rudish, who I love very much, he's the guy behind the new Mickey shorts, which also are very good at kind of bringing back that kind of classic comedy.
Yeah.
And so, the two of them are amazing together. Let's see them in rival properties. Let's see Gendry try and beat out Mickey with a good Bugs Bunny sketch.
I would honestly love to see that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, should we do some plugs here?
Let's do it.
All right. So you and I watched a movie together. So that was gonna be my plug, the Old Guard. Do you have anything else you want to plug first before we talk about that?
I have a weirder plug for you.
Okay.
I don't know how interested you would be into this, but I've been finding it fascinating, mainly just because I just miss Disney content so much. But the NBA players have officially started training for the playoffs that'll be happening at Disney World. So for those who've been kind of out of the loop, basically what Disney has proposed is they have a full sports facility, an arena set up, and they have the facilities to keep their players in kind of this bubble known as the Disney bubble. And so what's happening is
a kind of bubble known as the bubble?
Yes, known as the Disney bubble. So for the next 3 months, all the players are being kept in Disney World to play the NBA playoffs.
Well, let's really hope they don't go into actual Disney World.
They're not allowed. They're in they have no way of getting out, basically.
Okay.
Is they're staying at the Grand Floridian.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then they're basically being shuttled to the ESPN Sports Zone and back.
Okay.
And so no one else is allowed in the hotel, and no one else is allowed in the facility, and they're not allowed off property.
Okay.
And so there's a couple of people doing it, but there's one guy that I found really charming named Matisse Thibault, who's doing a YouTube series where he's vlogging his daily life in the Disney bubble.
Okay.
And it's just really fascinating to see people who don't really care about Disney being in this situation where everyone is super, because it's the cast, the people working the hotel are still equally excited about Disney stuff, and have to wear their magic band to get in and out of the rooms.
Yeah.
And there's some comedy that I find seeing people who just don't care at all being forced into this Disney mentality.
Being told to enjoy Disney at gunpoint, basically.
Yeah.
My God.
But no, it's interesting to see just kind of that lifestyle. It's
so is it a YouTube series catered more towards NBA fans, I would guess? Like I imagine it's more like the ins and outs of the NBA side of it more than it is like the Disney
I mean,
aspect seems like coincidental.
not because they're not allowed to like film practice. So it's basically him like going through his morning routine of like doing his stretching, going to his trainers to get kind of taped up, and then it's him just hanging out with the other players. It's just like a day in the life vlog
Okay.
of someone who happens to be a multi-million-dollar NBA player.
What's his name again?
Matisse Thybulle, Thybulle. He plays for the Sixers.
Okay, interesting. Huh.
Yeah, and it's just been like, I don't know, it's kind of lighthearted and it's nice and it kind of takes your mind off of everything else.
Everything else, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. But yeah, how about you talk about the old guard?
Yeah, so we watched The Old Guard last night with the as often mentioned, the third part of the Burger Fan Club, Shane Tully, occasional guest on this podcast.
Hi, Shane.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I really liked it. It gave me anxiety afterwards.
Okay, so I'm curious, what about it you really liked?
Easy. Charlize Theron.
Okay, well, yes, obviously Charlize Theron can do no wrong. She is a goddess, and this movie further proves that you could build an entire streaming platform around her filmography.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can build any movie around her.
Yeah. No, I mean, literally, she's one of the few actresses, or just in general, just like performers out there who could fit into any genre perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
She's done it all. Except
who
for
I
a
want to
superhero
see
movie.
A what?
Oh, no, that's not true. Hancock.
That's right.
Yeah, she had a superhero movie.
This is an actress. I'm going to put her name out there just because I feel like she has the chops for it. And I would just love to see her in an action moment.
Okay.
But let's put Emma Thompson through some training.
Like if they made a Red 3, throw Emma Thompson in there.
Yes. I would love to see Emma Thompson be an action hero for just a movie. Because I think she has the charm for it.
Yeah. I'm right there with you on that. Like I would love to see a
How old? I think she's kind of old, isn't she?
I think she's
like 50s,
60 something maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, I would love to see her in a like a spy caper.
Yeah.
Sort of thing, like one that's a little more like lighthearted and frothy, sort of like a To Catch a Thief sort of thing. Yeah, something kind of like fun and entertaining where like she is just like a total badass like hitman or assassin or something like that, and you totally wouldn't suspect it, and she gets moments of extreme action, but she just spends most of the rest of the movie just being her undeniably charming self.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I'm on board.
Okay, but back to the old guard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked the idea of it, and I think we were both, I don't want to say disappointed by the ending, but there's a storyline that we were both very excited for that never really bloomed into anything.
Yeah. I think it's fun. It's
for a Netflix movie, it's up in kind of the better ones.
I think that's it. I think it's a little bit better than most of the Netflix film fare. That being said, it did still feel a little underbaked. Like, I know I've said this before, that a lot of Netflix movies feel like 80% of a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for me, this one's like 90% of a good movie. Like, they clearly had the budget. You know, you've got Charlize Theron, you got a pretty damn good supporting cast. You know, there's lots of helicopter shots. You know, but like even
enough just to make Tom Cruise just a little excited.
Just a little, just to pique his interest. The action sequences were occasionally good, but I was expecting something more from the action sequences, to be honest. Like, it needed to have more like really cool. I can think of twice or all the action sequences where I was like, oh cool, I've never seen that before. Like that was like a really cool moment. It needed a little bit
fucking
more than
suplex. Oh
yes.
man, that
yes.
haunted me. Oh, yes. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, there's like two moments that really stood out as like really cool like action beats. But the action sequences themselves were like, we're fine, but a little bit generic. Just kind of same with the plot. Like, okay, like there's an interesting idea here. And the specific story you're telling is fine, but it could maybe have just a little bit more to it.
Hmm.
Um, and I guess I'm describing it like I didn't enjoy it. I liked it. I consider it like a very solid 3-star film. Like I think it's good that it was on Netflix. You just like sit down and watch it at home and not have to like pay to go see it. But I wanted just a little more zhuzh out of it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think I enjoyed it so much just because like I did get to watch it with you too.
Yeah.
And it was my first time socializing
That helps.
since our last recording.
That absolutely helps. Yeah. It just needed it needed a little bit more flair, a little bit more personality. It needed just a little bit more to feel distinct. And, it's not a spoiler to say that there's some really obvious sequel baiting happening too. Which at this point I just find just such an annoying act of hubris. It's like, come on. Maybe just resolve all your plot threads in the first movie and not just like deliberately leave things dangling for a second one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry, but I feel like no one other than the Marvel films should really have a post-credit sting at this point.
Yeah, and even like early Marvel films, like they kind of knew what they were doing, but even then, like the movie could have just ended and we never see these characters again.
Yeah.
A la Ed Norton and the Hulk.
Yes, exactly. Like the early Marvel stuff they were fun teases for things to come, and there was always the possibility that they didn't happen. It's like Iron Man sets up the Avengers. It's always a possibility the Avengers never happened if those movies weren't successful. But it felt bold and daring because no one else was really doing it at the time. Mm-hmm. And even if at the end it just became like this fun little like fan moment and a tease of something to come, it would have been okay. But now it's such an obvious tool used by everyone that when it happens, you're just like, just stop.
I forgot to bring this up earlier I'm not sure if you saw the same article, but you might have, when I was scrolling through movies that didn't get made that people wanted to get made. Mm-hmm. There was an article from like 2011 that's like movies we're never going to see ever because studios don't have a backbone anymore. It's like Deadpool, Wonder Woman, Justice League. And I'm like, wow, this is very well timed.
Fucking brilliant. It is an interesting dive going through and looking at stuff that was never made. Like I said, I think there's a full episode out of that potentially. But no, I mean, like I would say that The Old Guard, it's a plug. It's an absolute plug. I think it's worth a watch. It's it's a fun action movie.
Yeah, great one to watch like with a group.
Yeah, exactly. And Charlize is great. And the nice thing is that Netflix has Netflix Party. So that's what we did. We all got on Zoom/Netflix Party and watched it together. And it's not so demanding that you have to pay perfect attention all the way through. You'll still get the major beats of it. No, it's fun. It just felt, like I said, a little underbaked.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Okay, well, shall we land this bird?
Let's do it.
All right. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Timm Talk Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail. In particular, would love to hear what movies people would want to see that they never got a chance to. Like, what is the movie lost in development hell that you wanted to see, or the alternative version of something we never got a chance. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. And then you can find me at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram.
Yes. If you want to see my art, you can find that at Cameron.Dexter. And if you want to see my face, you can find that at CamDexter_adventures.
You have a new animation out.
I do. I did a little thing for Disney Bounding. I miss dressing up as my characters, so I made a little animation for it. And maybe when this episode comes out, I've been learning how to make Instagram filters, and they're, depending on how long Instagram's going to take to approve it, might be a filter up that I just finished making.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I absolutely loved your Disney Bounding little animation. It's
thank you.
Very sweet and adorable. And also just want to give you a shout out for how good your like artistic designs have gotten.
Thank you.
Like they've always been good, but I can see you like feeling more confident in being like expressive and having more animation to the characters. Like I've been able to see it over the course of the episode art you do for the show. Even like your stuff now is so good, and you can absolutely see in the animations they're getting like really really detailed and beautiful. So well done.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. So yeah, everyone go check that out. But we will be back next week with more Static Shock. Of course, we are getting to Cameron's now most anticipated episode,
The second
Hoop
Shack
Squad.
episode.
The Return of Shaq, aka not the actual Return of Shaq, with Hoop Squad, and then Now You See Him will be our other episode next week. But thank you as listening for always, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, see you then.
Bye.
Bye. A superhero Static Shock.
Woo woo.
A superhero Static Shock.
Woo woo.